hesitate to shoot down any objects that violate its airspace and pose a direct threat. However, he has said that the country will adopt a more cautious approach in situations that are less clear-cut, emphasizing the need to avoid actions that could escalate this conflict. Tusk's statement comes amid heightened tensions in the Baltic region, following Estonia's report that 3 Russian fighter jets violated its airspace last Friday. Poland has previously reported that more than 20 Russian drones entered its airspace on the night of September 9 to 10th. The Kremlin has responded to the Estonian allegations, describing them as baseless and intended to stir tensions, adding that Russian military pilots operate strictly in accordance with international law. Let's listen in to what the Polish Prime Minister has said.
Do każdej decyzji, która ma na celu unicestwienie obiektów, które mogą zagrażać nam, na przykład rosyjskich myśliwców, jeśli będą naruszały nasze na przykład będą latały nad naszymi wodami terytorialnymi, ale ja muszę mieć też 100% pewność. I Państwo dobrze rozumiecie, nie będę rozwijał tego wątku, że wszyscy sojusznicy będą traktowali to dokładnie w taki sam sposób jak my.
Now we go back to our guest discussion with Professor Andrew Latham and Professor Georgi Toloraya. Now first I would like to go to Professor Andrew. Professor Andrew, so how might this readiness to shoot down any airspace violations in Poland's airspace affect its relationship with, particularly with Russia?
Well, the upside is that it's clarifying. The policy is clarifying, and that's important in terms of the logic of deterrence. So if you knowingly and willfully violate Polish airspace, NATO airspace, we will respond as we are entitled to under international law, and we will shoot you down. That's the clarifying piece. The murkier piece is that President Tusk has said that if there's any ambiguity, then caution kicks in. If it's not clear that this is a deliberate attempt to cross the border in one way, shape, or form, to enter Polish airspace, that he will approach this with caution, which is a good thing. Deterrence requires clarity, but nobody wants unintended escalation that can result ultimately in a nuclear exchange. Nobody's interested. So I think he has struck the right note, even if that note is not well received in all quarters.
And Professor Georgi, now I would like to come to you. Do you think that although in other media it's said that Russia has violated and Russia has denied these allegations, how is this news reflected in Russia, if you can tell us from where you are?
Well, I don't think that anybody here believes that Russia would willfully violate the NATO airspace with the risk of escalation. And the Polish incident is still murky. And I've seen no evidence that it was really a Russian drones, that they were intentionally sent to Poland. Same with the Romanian case, and now with the Estonian case, there's sort of a campaign. We have to be very cautious at this point, because if, for example, a Russian jet is shot over the Baltic neutral airspace, that could be a really casus belli. I don't think anybody wants it, and nobody intends to do this. So we should be very cautious, and the rules of engagement and the rules of behavior are quite clear, and nobody is going, I think, to violate them willfully.
And Professor Andrew, I would like to come to you for a follow-up question based on both your answers. Do you think that this diplomatic or military measures is enough to prevent any accidental escalation?
Accidental, perhaps. And look, neither side, I think, wants an all-out shooting war that might terminate in a nuclear exchange. Neither side wants that. The problem, as Clausewitz and Thucydides and others have been warning us for millennia now, is we can't always control the dynamics. We get unintended consequences. And the way to minimize that is to be clear but cautious. And I think Tusk has made the appropriate signals. do not willfully transgress our border and enter our airspace, the consequences will be clear. However, if a pilot makes an error or a drone goes off course and it's accidental, then of course we can deal with that short of the use of force. I think this is perfectly predictable given what's happening or the way it's reported on both sides of the divide. There's confusion about who's doing and so on. And this is an attempt at clarification. It's signaling clearly what is already obvious to everybody. If anybody violates anybody else's airspace, especially a quote unquote adversary, they're inviting that platform to be shot down. So there's nothing surprising about it. It's simply the clarity with which it's being transmitted to various audiences.
Right. With that, I would like to thank both our guests, Professor Andrew Latham and Professor Georgi Toleraya, for joining us and sharing that insight. Now we move on to our next news. A UN-established commission on Ukraine has said that an investigation into drone attacks and deportations of adults from Russian-held Zaporizhia province has revealed coordinated and organized steps by Moscow to capture greater territory while pressuring locals to leave. The chair of the Independent International Commission of Inquiry on Ukraine, Eric Moss, has revealed his probe's findings in Geneva today. Let's listen in.
In May 2025, our conference room paper, the Commission documented widespread and systematic attacks with short-range drones by Russian armed forces targeted civilians in Kherson province. We concluded that these acts have been committed pursuant to a coordinated state policy and amount to crimes against humanity of murder, as well as war crimes of attacking civilians.
Now, footage published by Yanina Pavlenko, the mayor of Yalta, shows that she claims is the aftermath of a drone attack on school in the Foros suburb of the Crimean city. 13 people have been injured, according to officials in Yalta. Today, the head of the Kremlin-backed government in annexed Crimea, Sergei Aksyonov, has claimed that the Ukrainian military had targeted the Crimean resort town of Foros, damaging the grounds of a sanatorium and a school. Russia annexed Crimea in 2014 and wants Kyiv and Western countries to recognize the peninsula as part of its territory. Now we move on. A delegation